Examples: quantum computing, biotech, AI, robotics. So it's pretty obvious. Sometimes a little bit difficult to make a clear delineation what's not deep tech. But deep tech does address global challenges like climate, health, mobility, security. It's a term used a lot in the European Commission, European Union organizations, because a lot of funding depends on that as well. And we want to understand where is deep tech going. So here you have a good diagram that shows you nanotechnology, sorry, but also robotics and blockchain and some of the things don't exist yet, like quantum computing. We know how it works, we have samples, but we don't have any working machines. But a good example of deep tech is something that a few guys in Germany came up with, a scientifically based methodology to recover silicon out of old solar panels. You may be aware that solar panels technology significantly changed, also deep tech, over the last 10 years, and they become way more efficient, which means it makes sense to replace them. But how do we get the silicon back? So that's exactly what they do. And they've been planning in advance. And they're, of course, asking themselves, what's going to happen tomorrow, next year, in 10 years? And for this, we are right at the core of the topic we want to discuss today. Different approaches to, if you want to, predicting the future. Foresight, forecasting, and prediction. At first, they look pretty similar, but there are significant differences. Especially, you will learn a lot more about foresight on December 4th, because this is a scientific methodology that allows us to create trustworthy results, how things will develop over the next 5 or 10 years. So we explore not one future, but possible futures, what could be. Versus forecasting looks at likable futures, the most likely. Yeah? So that electric cars will be prevalent over the next few years, that's pretty likely. The prediction has a specific outcome, like the weather tomorrow. The foresight, on the contrary, thinks, how will individual traffic and vehicle movement develop in general over the next 10 years? Will people still have individual cars? Is car ownership something that's still relevant? So we have a range of plausible futures. There's not just one. And that's very, very important. Because by giving us this freedom, we can plan completely differently. And of course, there's no budgeting because we don't know. Oh, the question is. So, prediction is tomorrow. Forecasting is very soon. Foresight is longer range. What could happen? Plausible futures to guide a strategy. For instance, forecasting will tell us how many cars will be in Magdeburg next year. Prediction, it's World Cup. Around the stadium, all the parking spaces will be blocked. It will be a huge traffic jam. That's prediction. Foresight, on the contrary, is what could happen. For instance, people will give up owning cars because it's no longer necessary. Because individual automated self-driving cars traffic is so effective that it doesn't make sense to spend the money and the time to own a car or to park a car. So that means for the city of Magdeburg, we don't need all those garages anymore because nobody will park there. And to understand these things, this is absolutely essential. So while predictions informs accuracy and forecasting informs planning, what are we going to do next weekend? Foresight informs the strategy. How do we go about building more streets in Magdeburg or Stendal? So you see, when you look at this model, two forces come together, the competitive analysis and the market analysis. And these two forces allow us to evaluate key trends for foresight. And of course, there's not only technology, there are also regulatory trends, society and cultural, social economic trends. There was a time, I remember a time where not owning a car just said one thing: you can't afford one. Because if you can afford one, you have one. These days are over. So, strategic foresight, as we said, explores possible and plausible futures. And we identify emerging risks. And very important, we listen to weak signals. I may ask you later about it, that you take a minute to think about a foresight model and mark this. There's a little, like the same way we have the green check mark, there's also a little coffee cup. And I may ask you to use that. So don't forget that. Enhance resilience, and we harness opportunities like getting rid of all the garages. And above all, nobody wants surprises. So it's so important to avoid surprises, especially in business. So why do we do this whole foresight in the first place? Because we analyze uncertainty. We get comfortable with uncertainty, and we understand how it works. So that empowers our decision-making under ambiguous environments, because it's unsure. So we can throw up our hands in the air and say, oh, I don't know. Or we can develop a model that we can deal and create scenarios and engage in proactive innovation. The term for that, we love abbreviations, is VUCA: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Everything is unstable, it's unpredictable. There's so many different systems, elements, aspects, but everything is connected somehow. So it's very complex. And we cannot say that's the way. It's ambiguous. It could be this way, it could be that way. Learn to live with this is essential. There are other abbreviations, like FOMO. You heard about FOMO, yeah? Oh my God, what if I don't go to the party? The fear of losing opportunities for products or trends, or not meeting that famous person because you don't go to the party. Tina, in business, we feel like we have to do it. There's no alternative. And maybe there is one. And we always think, very often think there's no way. And there is one. There's more. There's Barney and Folo and YOLO. So be my guest. You can, the deck will be up on Miro, and you can check them all out. They're interesting. Think about a brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible environment, especially brittle. So why does foresight matter? It tracks weak signals. Weak signals are very, very important. What's a weak signal? Little things that start to happen that we observe. And later on, people will say, I didn't see this coming. And you may say, I saw this coming. Example, in 95, I said, 1995, quite a few years ago, I said, eventually computers, as we know them at the time, these were beige boxes, will disappear. You guys all have computers because you work with computers. But the average person today doesn't have a computer anymore. Well, yes, I mean, every smartphone is a computer. Every electric car opener is a computer. Your microwave is a computer. But what we call a computer, we no longer have. And people say, nah, that's stupid. We always will have computers. The same way they said 20 years earlier, nobody needs a computer at home. So observe the weak signals. And sometimes weak signals come at unexpected moments. We have a nonlinear approach, which means the linear thinking, first this, then this, then this, then this, breaks down. And it breaks down mostly when things get very complex and systems change very, very fast. And that requires powerful leadership. And leadership doesn't have anything to do with management. Leadership means to anticipate what's going to happen and be present, because you can be a leader for yourself or for 30,000 people. It makes no difference. And to understand that is essential. And there's lots of documentation. In the slide deck, you will find a list of sources, further reading. All this material has been put together. So Foresight connects systems and sparks innovation. That's important because we want to drive innovation across disciplines to build future-ready solutions and to understand what's resilient. I don't know whether you ever explored what quantum computers are. They're not 3 times as fast as our computers. They're thousands times faster than our computers. They are so fast that all the password security that we use today becomes completely useless. Which means we have to come up with a completely new security model. Because every password can be cracked immediately, almost. That's impact. Therefore, we need foresight. Therefore, we need to listen to these weak little signals. What could happen? Example, how and why AI could reshape the entire job market. We don't predict when that's going to come, but how and why those changes may occur. Versus prediction and forecasting compared to foresight. Estimating when a tsunami could reach the shore based on real-time ocean and seismic data. And now let's do the following. Take 90 seconds, a minute and a half for yourself, just in your head, and think about an example for foresight and an example for forecasting. And when you're done, put the little icon that I told you earlier next to your name on the participant list. I give you 90 seconds. Thank you. We have 5 people, 6 people, 7 people, 8. So a few coming together. Good. So I hope working through this in your own head help you a little bit distinguishing the different concepts. Let's go on. Another concept, megatrends. So that's the concept developing by the German Zukunftsinstitut. Megatrends identify and describe extremely complex change dynamics. So these are the really, really big streams that make the highly complex and diverse change dynamics of society more understandable. What's really happening in our century? And there's definition by them. Duration, they're long, multiple decades, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Like what's going to happen with individual vehicle ownership. Ubiquity, it will have impact everywhere. It's not just, oh, this is only for students in Stendal. Globality, so it's a global phenomenon. That is an interesting question because the way the world is much more diverse than we anticipate. That's a very Western idea that everybody does the same stuff. Complexity, they're always multidimensional and always multi-layered. And they are directly connected to foresight. Because megatrends describe what is changing, while foresight explores what those changes could mean. If megatrends show less car ownership, foresight can explore what does that mean? No more parked cars, no more garages. People have to change the way they do things. If AI eradicates many, many jobs, what will happen to those people? And they're not going to be just out of work and jobless. The whole notion of having a job and going to the office will disappear because it's not a given. That was always like that. Go back 200 years, nobody went to the office. Very few people. So foresight is the operationalization of megatrends. It turns them into strategy, which means if we look at a megatrend, say, okay, it's nice, but what are we going to do with it? That's where foresight comes in. Here you have a megatrend map. And sometimes it's getting too complex. Future of work, connectivity, health, global development, security, demographic change, urbanization. I taught a class this morning in Nachhaltige BWL, and we spoke about that topic, and we explored. What if the whole idea of having to constantly travel from A to B goes away? People stay. People no longer travel that much. So it's not even that, oh my God, we can't have cars anymore, and the environment and the air and climate change. People are no longer interested. Maybe the whole notion of going on vacation in Southeast Asia, in Bali, is no longer attractive. They want to do different things. Who knows? This is megatrends. Sometimes you want an easier map. But these are always also important questions. So let's compare. Megatrends, they describe long-term global transformations. Foresight examines the future implications. Do you see the difference? Descriptive, analytical. Orientation and stability across decades. Strategic options. What are we going to do? Pathways, innovation. To sum it up, what is changing and what does that change mean. This is why foresight is so important. So let's compare again. What will happen? What could happen? Short-term, long-term, accuracy and reduction of uncertainty, less uncertainty. Foresight, we are ready, we accept uncertainty. Not knowing can be very good. Accept not knowing. And we all know, yeah, sometimes we go on a trip and we just go there. We have no idea what's going to happen. Maybe today you came to the class and said, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm open. Or you're not willing to accept the uncertainty and be ready to explore. Because there are multiple plausible futures. We don't know what's going to happen. So, a brief introduction. And I think we are decently in time, and probably we are even shorter. Thank you.